All right, let's dive into a question that's kind of at the crossroads of scripture and ancient history, and it's a really fascinating one. So, did Jesus ever reference the Book of Enoch? A text that you won't find in most Bibles. And look, this isn't just some historical trivia. The answer really gets to the heart of the world Jesus lived in, the ideas that were floating around, and maybe even how those ideas shaped the New Testament itself. So, why does this even matter? Well, think about it. If he did, it suggests that the Book of Enoch was a really influential part of the spiritual world he lived in. It's like it gives us a richer context for the Gospels. It helps us get a feel for the cultural and theological air that Jesus and his earliest followers were breathing. Okay, so before we can even start looking for clues in the Gospels, we got to get our heads around the book at the center of this whole mystery, the Book of Enoch. So the first thing that jumps out here is the timing. I mean, look at this. The Book of Enoch isn't some later text trying to piggyback on the Bible. It's actually older. It was written and passed around before and during the life of Jesus. That means it was part of the library of ideas that was available to people back then. So the Book of Enoch falls into this category of writings called the pseudo-Apocrypha. Now, that sounds complicated, but it just means falsely ascribed. But that doesn't mean they were trying to trick people. See, back then, attributing a text to an ancient, super respected figure like Enoch, Genesis says this guy walked with God, it was a way of saying, hey, the wisdom in here is ancient and divinely inspired. And the main takeaway here, this book was a big deal. Seriously, they found fragments of it all over the place for the Dead Sea Scrolls. That tells us that, the community at Qumran was definitely reading it and copying it. And it wasn't just them. Early Christians held it in really high regard too. So even though it didn't make the final cut from most Bibles, it was super popular and considered authoritative by a lot of people. Okay, let's get into the clues. The investigation really kicks off with a very specific and really powerful title. So if you read the Gospels, you'll see Jesus refers to himself with a very specific title all the time, the Son of Man. It's his most common self-reference, a huge part of his identity. But where did that title get its meaning? Yeah, it shows up in the Old Testament, especially in the book of Daniel. But the book of Enoch, it uses that same title in a way that is, well, you'll see, it's strikingly similar. Okay, just look at this side by side. On the left, you've got 1 Enoch, written way before Matthew. It says, when they see the Son of Man sitting on the throne of his glory. Then over on the right, you've got Matthew's gospel describing Jesus' return. When the Son of Man comes in his glory, then he will sit on his glorious throne. Come on. The language, the imagery of this powerful judging figure on a throne, it's incredibly close. And this really gets to the core of it. In both of these texts, the Son of Man isn't